Welcome back, everybody, to Toronto Today here on the Parlay. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, alongside my co-host, Michael Singh, and we are back on this Monday to talk about what happened this weekend and look ahead to a couple of interesting games tonight in the Toronto sports landscape. We're gonna first start by talking about the weekend. I mean, the NHL All-Star Game went down. I'll be honest, I didn't do a whole ton of watching the All-Star Game. I didn't even watch the Pro Bowl either. I think All-Star Game should be abolished from pro sports. That's just my hot take to begin the show. And I guess we'll start there. Did you watch the NHL All-Star Game?
I caught some of it. I was like in and out of it. I believe, I want to say during the skills competition, there was another significant game on. I just can't remember right now. But yeah, it's so gimmicky, man. Like, especially because they were in Las Vegas this year.
Yeah.
They tried to put on more of a show, more of a spectacle, and part of it was just so cringe, man. But hey, some people like it. I do like some of the events that I know. Also, you can bet on like the fastest skater, for example. Like every time that competition is in, like I don't want to miss that, just because I feel like it's so classic. Like it's one of those skills that like it's so easy to measure. But it's interesting, like, is someone going to be faster than Connor McDavid? And, of course, it was Jordan Kyrou this year that stole the show and managed to beat out McDavid there in the fastest skater. So if you bet on Kyrou, you probably got some good odds. But overall, just my takeaway from that weekend game is, yeah, I'm with you, man. It's just so gimmicky.
Yeah, I caught the blackjack game. That was pretty cool. The runaway challenge, I think that's what they called it. That was really gimmicky. I'm like, what is this? I mean, some of the goals were pretty cool, but as far as the actual game went, I just watched the highlights. I didn't care to watch the game. And going back to my earlier statement about the Pro Bowl, it was just as bad, if not worse. I was watching the highlights. I didn't even get to watch the game, and they were basically playing two-hand touch. It was crazy. People were losing their minds on Twitter watching it. They're like, we're literally watching a football game in the NFL, and these guys are two-hand touching the other guy. So I think it's going to spark a conversation amongst these sports leagues. Should the All-Star Game stay? I think the leagues that do the best job with it are the NBA, although the NBA's All-Star weekend has fallen back a bit from years past, and MLB. I still think MLB has the best showcase. But all in all, these are games that I don't think anybody really cares about anymore.
Yeah, the MLB used to like put home field advantage on the line.
That was good.
In the World Series. I honestly don't know if they still do that. I doubt they still do that.
I think they took it out, yeah.
Yeah, but it made it at least a little bit more competitive, and like that's just it's the running joke with all All-Star games. It just, as producer Robbie is saying in our chat right now, it's unwatchable. The Pro Bowl was unwatchable. I caught actually a little bit of that game, and I was wondering, like, the two teams that are playing in the Super Bowl right now, like Cincinnati and the LA Rams, like they don't have any of their players in the Pro Bowl, right?
No, they don't send anybody.
Yeah, you don't want to risk any injury. Can you imagine you're in a Pro Bowl game and your star wide receiver just pulls a hamstring and he's out for the Super Bowl? I think Pro Bowl is probably one of the worst All-Star games out there. What do you think is the worst All-Star game, Luca, out there?
The Pro Bowl. They got to get rid of it. Guys are scared to get injured because it is the end of the season. They don't want to suffer an injury going into their off season, but it's terrible. And yesterday's Pro Bowl was the worst of them all. I'm telling you, when I saw the O-line barely move around to get to the quarterback and the other players just two-hand touching their opposition and the play stopped, I'm like, what is this? They're better off just playing either flag football or doing some challenges or just cancel this game altogether. So the Pro Bowl is definitely the number one worst All-Star game, followed by, I would say, the NHL. Then I would go MLB. MLB used to be the best in my books when they did have that stipulation of the winner would get home field advantage for their side. Yeah. But since they took that out, I got to go with the NBA for being the overall best All-Star weekend.
All-Star weekend for sure, because you have the skills competition in the NBA and everyone wants to tune into the dunk contest, although it has gotten worse over the years.
Very bad.
The 3-point shootout is always entertaining in the NBA, and I'm with you. I think the Pro Bowl, like, you can't really fake an NFL game, and that's pretty much what the Pro Bowl is. So it becomes very obvious.
Yeah.
NHL has tried to change it up, and they made theirs like 3-on-3. their games into like a tournament style, which I thought is pretty. I mean, it's sure at least you're trying something different, and there's more room for skills to be showed off. But again, when people aren't trying, it's not as entertaining. So I'm with you, man. Just like let's abolish All-Star games as a whole. Maybe name an All-Star team so you still keep that accolade. But I don't think there's a need for any games anymore. I'm a big advocate though of keeping like the skills competitions. If we can actually get a solid foundation down, for example, like the NHL, like you want the hardest shot, you want the fastest skater, maybe you want like a realistic breakaway challenge, let's throw $1 million on the line.
Yeah.
And let's say if you can actually, do that, then let's do it. Find a way to measure the goalies tangibly. And then we're talking there with NHL All-Star Game and NBA All-Star Weekend, as we mentioned already. The skills competition is the highlight there, so keep that intact. I want to see that for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Why not do a skills competition for the Pro Bowl? I want to see which quarterback has the most accurate throws. I want to see who can kick the farthest out of a field goal, right? I want to see who can do a 40-yard dash the fastest.
Yeah.
Little things like that. Like, show me that. I will be glued to my television screen.
Yeah, they used to do that. I don't know why they took it out. They used to have the longest throw challenge, and that was pretty entertaining watching that as a kid. You would see some of the best quarterbacks see who could throw it the farthest. They would have other things, like you said, accuracy tests. So I don't know why they went away from that. And yeah, the games in general for every All-Star event have been very, very bad. I agree. If they just keep the skills challenges for every league, that would be so much better than what we have been seeing over the last couple of years. We could talk about this all show. Clearly, we're both very opinionated about these All-Star games sucking, but we're actually going to move on to Toronto Ultra. You've covered them closely, Mike. They actually lost their opening game of the season. Take us through that one.
Yeah, that's tough for my best bet and tough for the Toronto Ultra. It was so close. So the way that the Call of Duty League works, it's a best of 5. So there's 5 different, I guess, maps that they play. And the first one to win 3 of those maps, game modes, wins the whole match. So it actually went to a game 5. And within that game 5, it was the race to 6. And Toronto Ultra actually had a 4-1 lead in game 5. And they came back. They unfortunately blew that lead to the Seattle Surge, who were in last place last season, and they've just revamped their roster, and they're really good. They're looking really good this year. But it went down to like a decisive game 6. Think of it like an overtime in the best of 5. And within that game 6, it came down to like a millisecond of a difference in terms of who was going to win and who was going to lose. It was really like until the last second, it was kept you on the edge of your seat. And unfortunately, Toronto Ultra came up on the losing end, which was a bit of a surprise, as they are one of the favorites to actually take everything this year. So keep an eye on them and see how they do. It might give you some good value on their next bet, I believe, which is next weekend, as they continue this first major qualifying stage.
Shout out to esports. We'll be trying to implement a lot more esports coverage on the show and with other shows here on the Parlay. And then to conclude our weekend recap here, the Raptors. We're going to talk about them more in depth in a couple minutes, but they covered against the Hawks, and they went 5-0 in a week where you and I were both interested to see how they were going to fare. I think it's safe to say they exceeded both of our expectations.
I think they've exceeded everybody's expectations, man. Like, this Raptors team is they're winning games they shouldn't really be winning right now. There's no other way to phrase that. I didn't think the Raptors would be kind of in this position where they're competing with the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and not only competing, they're winning those games, and they're doing so without a legitimate big man. No offense to Precious and Chris Boucher, but those guys aren't natural starting centers in terms of when you think of a big paint presence. This is a team effort, next man up mentality. If it's not Gary Trent doing it, then it's Pascal continuing to lead that offense, or Fred VanVleet, or Scotty Barnes, or even Chris Boucher has stepped up quite a bit here. So another massive win against the Atlanta Hawks, who came into that matchup winning 7 of their last 8 games. Of course, that only loss was to the Toronto Raptors, so now 7 of their last 9. I guess 7 of their last 10, because they did lose last night to Dallas in a pretty entertaining one as well. But overall, yeah, man, the Raptors are putting everyone in the Eastern Conference on notice, and that's ahead of a very big trade deadline week for this team, one that should be very interesting. And of course, they have another big one tonight, Luca.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen this week, Mike. The Raptors are in sixth place. They've been winning these games, 5-game winning streak now. And we've already seen some pretty big moves happen in the NBA. Norman Powell getting traded again. We got a big one last night with LeVert. He was rumored to maybe go to the Raptors. He's going to Cleveland. So we'll see now what the domino effect is in the NBA. I think we're going to get a lot of deals done leading up to the trade deadline. Typically in years past, everything would happen in the final hour before the trade deadline. I think this might be a week where we see a lot of action happening before the deadline. We already saw 2 pretty big moves, so I can see that happening throughout. And we'll see if the Raptors can strike a deal. Obviously, they have their needs. If they could get another big man, that'd be great. If they could get another playmaker, a shooter from off the bench, that would be even better. But despite what this team doesn't have right now, they're making good on what they do have. And they're going to be taking on the Hornets tonight. And let's just emphasize by saying the Hornets are actually going to be the slight favorite in this one. -1 at home. Now, I don't really understand how you can pin the Raptors as an underdog here. The only argument I would make is that the Hornets are at home. But man, you look at the Raptors, 5 in a row. They've won 6 of their last 7. They're 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games. So they're covering in these wins. 30-21 against the spread this season. They beat the Hornets. No, they smacked the Hornets last week at Scotiabank Arena. That game wasn't even close. I know the score suggests it was, but that was all Raptors all game. And they have won 3 of their last 4 against the Hornets. So where do you think the odds makers are coming to make the line like this? Are they really valuing the fact that the Hornets are the home team here?
Buddy, I smashed that really quick last night and took that Raptors covering that spread. And then since I woke up this morning and checked it, that's already shifted. The Raptors are now 2-point favorites. So it's already been a 3-point shift. Nothing's changed in terms of lineups wise. It's just Vegas. People are betting on the Raptors because they saw that odd. And of course, that affects the way the line moves. And Raptors, again, 2-point favorites here. And yeah, as they should have been, at least. I still think that's very good value for the Raptors. Charlotte's lost 4 straight games. They lost versus the Miami Heat. They actually got obliterated versus the Miami Heat. They only put up 8 points in the third quarter of that game. They've lost versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've lost versus the Boston Celtics and the LA Clippers. So the Raptors are another team that's in that mix. And this Raptors team, as you mentioned, they beat Charlotte 2 weeks ago. So they're 5-0 straight up in their last 5 against teams in the East. And on the other side, Charlotte are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games at home. So I don't know where Vegas is pulling these numbers from. Maybe they know something we don't know. But the way the Raptors are trending, the way the Hornets are trending, I mean, this one has to be, you have to be leaning Raptors in this one, right? What reasoning can you give me right now to lean Charlotte Hornets aside from a crazy hunch?
That might have been a mistake out of the gate. I really can't justify how they came out with the Hornets being a slight favorite to begin this line. We just went over every single stat, and it suggests to take the Raptors here. And you just look at both these teams coming in, polar opposites. The Raptors are red hot. The Hornets are faltering. This is a spot where it does seem too good to be true to just get the Raptors now as a -2-point favorite, because that's still essentially a toss-up game, a pick-em. And the Raptors should be able to go into Charlotte and beat this team. The Hornets have not scared me over the last couple of weeks. They have been a very entertaining and fun team to watch, especially at home. But this is a matchup that you got to side with the Raptors. I mean, you can't discredit what this team continues to do. They look like the most dangerous team in the East. They're a team that continues to get it done. That starting 5, that death lineup, whatever you want to call it, they are getting it done. And they're fun to watch right now. And the most fascinating part of both their run is that the league is starting to take notice. You got outlets like ESPN talking about them. You got other fan bases starting to talk about this Raptors team. And it's amazing to see. And I saw something on Twitter that really caught my attention this morning. And it's so true. You look at the Raptors and the Nets. The Raptors right now are ahead of the Nets, and the Raptors were supposed to be the rebuilding team this season that was barely going to get into a playoff spot. And the Nets were, of course, the big bad contenders who were going to easily get to an NBA Finals. I mean, I thought that was going to be the case for them. And here we are. February, trade deadline a couple days away, and the Raptors are ahead of the Nets in the Eastern Conference standings. If you told me that at the beginning of the season, Mike, that we'd be a couple months into the season and the Raptors would be ahead of the Nets in the standings, I would not have believed you. No way. And that's happening right before our very eyes.
A week and a half ago, we were on this show, man, and we were talking about there's no way the Raptors are going to finish in the top 6 in the Eastern Conference because Brooklyn was the team in 6, and you look at the other teams ahead of or Brooklyn there, and they're all pretty competitive, and no one really expects them to waver too much. Well, the Raptors went on a heater, won 5 in a row, all against really, really good teams. And Brooklyn, on the other hand, I mean, they lost 6 or they've lost 7 in a row. One of the two. Two teams trending in opposite directions there. And the Raptors continue to make up ground. So if they find a way tonight to get another important victory against the Charlotte team that's dropped out of the top 8, surprisingly, we're talking about the Raptors in a very positive light come the rest of this way, because I believe come Thursday the Raptors are going to be getting better. You hear some of the names that are linked with them. You hear Nurkic, Miles Turner. I don't know if Robert Williams is realistic, but you hear some of those types of names, and you add a piece like that to this team, give them some paint presence. It's hard not to get excited about this Raptors team. As you mentioned, everyone else is taking notice right now. And I guess Charlotte's going to have to be wary tonight. It's going to be a tough one for the Charlotte Hornets, who continue to decline right now.
Yeah, the Nets have lost 8 in a row. They have fallen from grace mightily. I don't know what's going on with that team right now. There's rumors swirling around. Could James Harden be dealt? I mean, right now, this Nets team, they look desperate, and I would not be surprised if they make a big splash. But going back to the Raptors quickly here, yeah, just 4.5 games back of first. The East is wide open. All it could take really is for a team to make a move at the deadline, get hot, and run away with this thing. It's still all within reach. It's crazy that just 4.5 games separate 7th from first in this crazy conference. So the Raptors, I don't think they expected to be here per se. I mean, the fans especially didn't, but now that they see a huge opportunity ahead of them, they're going to go for it. And I think they did exceed Masai Ujiri's expectations. I truly believe that. I really think Masai went into the season thinking that it was going to be another developmental year. Maybe the Raptors could get into that play-in, maybe get into the playoffs. But now that he's seen this team take off and how well they're playing and how feasible it is for this team to get into a high seeding in this wide open Eastern Conference, I think we will see Masai Ujiri aggressive at Thursday's deadline. I'd be shocked if the Raptors don't do anything of significance, especially since we just saw the Cavaliers make a big move for Karis LeVert. That just elevated them. So all eyes will be on the Raptors on Thursday. We'll see what move they make.
Yeah, see, like this Raptors team on paper, last year they were supposed to be good. Like, obviously you had a lot of the pandemic related issues that really messed with this team. And I think they finished a lot worse than they were expected to finish. Obviously that resulted in them winning the draft lottery in the shape and getting Scotty Barnes at number 4 overall. But it's also really reminiscent of that 2013 Raptors season, if I'm recalling correctly. That season was the year that they essentially decided kind of a quarter of the way through that they need to hit the reset button. I believe they traded Andrea Bargnani. They traded Rudy Gay. They were going to trade Kyle Lowry, which, I mean, thankfully that move never transpired. But what they acquired that year was a lot of depth and a lot of role pieces. And they surprised everybody by getting super hot. It was DeMar DeRozan's team again at that point. Kyle Lowry also played a significant role, but they acquired like a deep bench. And as you mentioned there, this is why it triggered me. I don't think Masai was expecting that. And I don't think Masai was really expecting this resurgence this quickly, at least. Yeah. So now it's different this year because the Raptors are in a position now to add to this team. And with the way that the East is shaping up, as you mentioned there, Luca, you have to take a swing. I think you have to take a significant swing, as Fred VanVleet has a year and a half before he can opt out of his contract. Gary Trent Jr., same thing. Pascal Siakam, he's 27. He's not at the end of his prime, but he's in his prime years. Are you going to have Scotty Barnes on a rookie deal for as long as you do? Are you going to have OG signed to this team friendly contract for as long as you do? There's a lot of things working the Raptors' way right now, and you have to capture that lightning in a bottle because it's not going to be here forever. So take
Yeah.
advantage when you can. These opportunities don't come along very often. I know you want to build a dynasty, but at the same time, you got to look at what's in front of you. You know, what's in front of the Raptors is an opportunity to make a deep playoff run in 2021 and like at 2022, I guess. And you can't look past that.
Yeah, what I'll say in closing is never doubt Masai Ujiri. I mean, the man turned Grievous Vasquez into OG Anunoby and then Gary Trent Jr. It's incredible what he's done over this entire tenure with the Raptors. That was the biggest Raptors re-signing or free agent signing, bringing back Masai. This guy's a
Yeah.
basketball genius. He is a supernova, and we just saw what he did last year of getting Gary Trent Jr. for Norman Powell, and then a year later, he looks like a genius. The Raptors have clearly won that deal. Norman Powell just got traded. The Portland Trailblazers gave up 2 firsts and Gary Trent Jr., and they have Eric Bledsoe to show for after a year, whereas the Raptors have a rising star. So it's incredible how he has transformed this organization and how the Raptors continue to stay at the top. So yeah, we'll see what they do this Thursday. All eyes are going to be on Masai and the Raptors to see how they bolster this team as they are playing really, really good basketball right now. Let's now talk about Leafs Hurricanes. And I'm actually surprised, Mike, because in the NBA, I know they have a couple of days in between the All-Star weekend and then playing again, that the Leafs are in action tonight. Quick turnaround time. I don't really understand that. But anyways, they're going to be taking on the Hurricanes, the Leafs, and the Hurricanes are 7-1 straight up in their last 8 games. So they're coming into this on a big heater. They're 4-2 straight up in their last 6 games against Toronto, 6-2 straight up in their last 8 games on the road, and 16-4 straight up in their last 20 games this season. So do you think the Hurricanes can begin their second half of the season by beating the Leafs here?
I'm surprised that this line is actually so heavily favored in the Leafs' direction. The Leafs right now, they're minus 135 on the money line. Of course, they're 1.5 point favorites against a Hurricanes team that's actually better than them in the standings right now. They've played the same amount of games, but the Hurricanes are still ahead of the Leafs. The Hurricanes have really done it from beginning to end this season. They've lost less than 10 games this year overall. So it's going to be a tough game. It's one that I think I'd probably stay away from. We talk about the Raptors winning 5 in a row for 5 in a row. So have the Leafs. They're 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games heading into this one. Of course, they've had a little bit of a break, which is good when you have a couple of veterans on that team that probably need that little bit of a refresh, restart. But the Hurricanes, man, like I don't know what to expect here because Carolina, I mean, we talk about how good they are. They've also won 4 of their last 5 games as underdogs. And each of their last 7 night games at Scotiabank Arena at the ACC, the Hurricanes have covered that puck line at least.
Yeah.
So the Leafs don't typically dominate Carolina as they do other teams around the league. And Carolina's taken that next step this year. Of course, they're backstopped by someone Toronto Maple Leafs know very well, and that's Frederik Andersen. We'll see if Freddie gets to start tonight, but Mrazek's going to go for the Leafs. So again, that makes me a little bit more concerned than if Jack Campbell was in net. If I had to pick straight up, man, I think I'm taking Carolina.
Yeah.
It's good value, and I think it's not really that much of a risk right now.
Yeah, I think this is the odds makers just taking a core that the Leafs are coming into this game winning 5 in a row. But this is a mega showdown, man. Hurricanes 31-9-2, Leafs 29-10-3. This is going to be a fantastic matchup. But I agree. Whenever you get a team that is coming in hot and overall better than the team they're playing record-wise, you got to take them as a slight dog. That's very tempting here. So this just goes to show how odds makers are valuing the Leafs' incredible play lately. They are going to be at home. But yeah, this could be a toss-up. But I think that X factor of having Mrazek there and not Campbell, that could be the biggest difference between you picking the Leafs and not picking them. So I would have to agree with you, Mike. I think if you do bet on tonight's game, you do go with the value pick of the Hurricanes as a slight dog here.
And it's also not the home ice advantage that we're used to seeing with other teams around the league. The Leafs, what now, are limited to what, 1,000 fans in the stadium right now?
Yeah.
So it's not like they're having that Toronto like atmosphere that can shift or sway a game late in the third period. This is, you're gonna go into an empty arena. The only difference is gonna be the travel and using the visiting dressing room as opposed to the home dressing room there. And again, like there's more that I talk about this, the more I'm convincing myself that Carolina is gonna find a way to, or at least Carolina is probably the safer bet. Again, if you have a hunch that the Leafs are gonna pull this off, by all means. But for me, I gotta say the value right now is with Carolina.
You might be hinting at your best bet with how much you're giving the Hurricanes a lot of credit here, but we'll see what you take with your best bet, which is coming up after the last segment we want to get to. We'll see how the Leafs do tonight against the Hurricanes and, of course, the Raptors against the Hornets. But we do want to talk Sebastian Givinco. There was a ton of talk that he could be joining Toronto FC, but now the latest report suggests that he could be going to Serie A, and Giovinco could be leaving Toronto FC training camp and joining Sampdoria on a 6-month deal. So what do you make of the news, and how likely do you think Giovinco and Sampdoria can get a deal done here?
I think that will transpire, and it's comes as a shock to a lot of people around the club. I think a lot of people within the club as well. I think both parties were kind of heading in a direction where it seemed like they could get a deal done. You had Bob Bradley talking positive about Giovinco. Bill Manning was talking about the way that Giovinco wants to retire as a Red. But I'm told that this deal actually transpired very quickly. Sampdoria had a very big injury to one of their key forwards, and that resulted in them needing someone there to bolster their attack. So if it is a 6-month deal, I'm not surprised that they went to Sebastian Givinco. And part of me isn't surprised that Giovinco part of me isn't surprised that Giovinco's taken up this opportunity, because it's Serie A. I mean, this is a guy who probably still wants to compete, and who's to say at the end of this deal he can't return to Toronto FC after that? So opportunity knocked. Sebastian Givinco was open to it, and it's unfortunate for TFC fans who are definitely anticipating the return of the Atomic Ant at BMO Field. And yeah, I got to say personally, I'm disappointed as well. You definitely wanted to see Sebastian Givinco line up with TFC from the beginning of the season. He was touted to be, he was at training camp with the club. The club was tweeting out pictures of him. I mean, fans were excited. And unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I guess shifting directions quickly, TFC making another move this morning, and they signed Jesus Jimenez, a Spaniard. And this guy is someone that's probably more in the wheelhouse of what they're looking towards. That he's 28 years old. He's a forward, and he's scored at a prolific rate over the last couple of seasons. So sure, you lose Giovinco, but you probably acquire a guy now who is going to make a bigger impact on this team in 2022 than probably Sebastian Giovinco was. So you lose a little bit of that commercial value, but on the pitch, I think TFC got better within the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I'll say this about Giovinco. I mean, it's bittersweet. You want to see him here play for Toronto FC. The idea of him with Insigne and being back here in Toronto was music to every Toronto FC's fans' ears. But at the same time, this is a big one for Giovinco. You got to be happy for him as he gets to go back to Serie A. And I mean, this is a guy who's 35 years old, and he's going to have a chance to prove himself again. And he probably still has some game left in the tank. And like you said, at the very worst, it doesn't work out. TFC is always going to be that option, I'm sure, for him to exercise. So I think this is big news if you're a Giovinco fan. And if you're a TFC fan, like you said, Mike, all's not lost. They did get better over the last 48 hours. This is a team that's still trending upwards. So just like we talk about with the Raptors and the Leafs, TFC's future looks very, very bright. And I can't wait to go to some games. I know we're dying to go, but I tell you, man, after I saw Canada in action at Tim Hortons Field, I'm like, I got to go to more of these footy games here on Canadian home soil. So I can't wait to be back at TFC games, especially now that TFC is going to be relatively good.
It's one of the best hidden gems in I think Toronto is heading to a Toronto FC game, and that atmosphere is very lively, similar to Canada games. I don't think you'll get kind of that atmosphere right away, just because this team is still sort of rebuilding, at least until the summer when Lorenzo Insigne arrives. And I'm sure the crowd will be absolutely bonkers cheering on. I'm sure Luca, you'll be right in that mix, cheering on Lorenzo Insigne and company. But this team it's taken a slower approach to kind of rebuilding than I believe a lot of people were hoping for. But that being said, you got to get it right. This team learned last year you can't just hope for that quick fix when it comes to making significant changes. So take your time, get it right. There's still a lot of moves to come down the well. So keep an eye on Toronto FC in the coming weeks, months, and I'm sure come summertime they'll be very, very exciting to watch.
All right, we are going to switch gears now to our best bet, and we'll see if we could pick some winners for tonight. Mike's coming in at 11-10. I'm coming in at 14-7. Don't mush me. Don't say that's a great record, Luca. Just keep your thoughts to yourself. But we'll start with your best bet, Mike. What do you like tonight?
Luca, you're on fire, dude. You're on absolute fire. Like if you've listened to Luke on this podcast, you've made some money. I guarantee it. But I am taking the Toronto Raptors tonight. I mean, how could you not? They have right now the line shifted, so if you're betting now, it's at -2, and of course you're going to get -110 for covering that spread. But for all the reasons we listed above, the Raptors are probably a pretty safe bet tonight to potentially cover here against Charlotte. Of course, anything can happen, but based on the numbers right now, you bet the Raptors tonight. So I'm taking the Raptors -2.
All right, so I guess my fault because I didn't put my pick in the rundown, but I was going to go with the Raptors too. But for the sake of having a different pick, I won't be that guy of going with the Raptors as well. I'll go off the cusp here, and I will take another game. So Mike stole my Raptors pick, and I do think that wins. But I'm going to go with Miami over Washington. That's another game I like tonight in the NBA. Miami's just a 6-point favorite.
I think I lost Luca, but Luca was very passionate about his
Can you hear?
Miami Heat pick. Yeah, I can hear you now. I heard 6-point favorites Miami that you're taking them. I think that's all we need to hear from you at this point, man, because you're money. You don't even need to explain yourself anymore.
I got so excited that I think I hit the cable out of the jack here. So you know what? I'll leave it at that. You don't need to hear my explanation. My track record speaks for itself. Take the Heat tonight -6. I think they'll get it done against a Wizards team that's going the opposite direction right now.
There you go. Money Luca. I used to be called Money Mike, but man, I think you're going to take my nickname soon.
Well, let's see what happens with our best bets and more. But thank you so much thank you so much for watching another edition of Toronto Today here on the Parlay. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, alongside Michael Singh. We come at you every single day, Monday through Friday, and we'll be back tomorrow recapping Toronto sports and more. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you all tomorrow.